So we've got lots and lots to get through this morning. A bunch of interesting issues. First of all, we've been asking you to tell us on X and on all social media platforms whether you would support a bill to a free SHS bill, as has been proposed by the majority in Parliament. That has sparked some conversation. We'll talk about it. We're also very interested in Galamsey goings on, especially since a parliamentary candidate somewhere in the western region, in the presence of the regional minister, no less, made some rather controversial comments about what he expected minors to do to security service personnel. And then the president, for perhaps the fourth time, has been adamant that he's not a clearing agent. He says that this is in response to some comments by former President John Mahama, and the president insists that he will not put aside rule of law, no matter what pressure is brought to bear on him. We'll talk about that as well. Yeah, lots to get through. Shall we get started?
Yes, let's get started. Let's get started with discussions about the need for a bill on free senior high school.
Now, we've heard the majority leader talk about this, and the suggestion here is that, it's a good thing. Why not, create a law that protects a good thing? What are your thoughts, Mr. Segbefia?
First and foremost, good morning again. I think that is where the controversy comes. What is the purpose of the bill? I haven't seen it. I don't know what it contains. So everything I say comes with that caveat. Because if it is a bill that is being passed to deal with certain administrative issues to ensure that there is a smooth process, because it has been wrought with challenges, we are clear of that, then one will not necessarily knock it. But because the word protection of free SHS, and part of it was actually said that it was being done because there are some noises about some people saying they are going to
Scrap it.
The first question is, who has ever said they are going to scrap free SHS? Nobody. Nobody in any political party has said it. So where that myth comes from, except the MPP decided to interpret the word review to mean scrap. And that is completely, totally unfortunate, because they are now having to look at it as part of the IMF processes. So that puts that to bed. The more interesting aspect of it is that, Kojo, you don't get a greater protection in this country than from the Constitution of Ghana. And unlike other things which are not specifically mentioned, free SHS is specifically mentioned in the Constitution. And we are supposed to attain it through a progressive process. We in the NDC said we started that progressive process with the new schools that we were bringing on board. When the MPP came on board, they decided Big Bang effect is better. We'll do all at the same time. So there is no ability for anybody to renege or go back on free SHS, because anything you do that removes it or tries to, it now becomes totally unconstitutional, because now you have gone past, we are trying to do it, it's there. You cannot now go back on the Constitution. So the protection aspect already exists. What is a bill going to come and give you that the Constitution hasn't already given you? And so for me, if they had said there are certain administrative issues that we had to look at, and that's why I want to see the bill, to see what is actually bringing, then okay, we want to make sure that certain things have to be in place. The funding of it must come from this type of fund. That's different. But if you use the word protection because somebody can scrap it, nobody can scrap free SHS as it stands. It's a constitutional requirement. And so I don't get it. What is the law they are going to pass going to do for anybody?
Do you appreciate their discomfort, however, bearing in mind the fact that your flag bearer did, I think it was in the run-up to 2016 election in Cape Coast, did actually say that it's a bad idea to immediately make it free, and that, in fact, if he were to win the election, he outlined his plan of making it progressively free, and that it wouldn't be free for everyone, everywhere, at once.
What does the Constitution say?
No, I appreciate that.
It uses the word progressive.
I do.
He hasn't used the word that is not constitutional.
I do get that.
Okay.
I'm asking whether you understand their discomfort.
I
Bearing
don't.
in mind, the flag bearer of your party did say these things.
I don't have any understanding of why they would say this, except for political expediency. One of the things we have persistently asked for is a policy document on free SHS. We don't have one to date. We don't. We have moved from getting a policy document, and we are now talking of statute. When what the statute is supposed to do is already protected within the Constitution. So where is your policy document, which will actually give us direction and space to be able to operate? You haven't done it. So for me, what President Mahama said in 2016 was, look, with the funding process and everything that we have, I believe in a progressive process, and I'm starting with the free senior high schools that we are building, which he did and we started doing. You have taken a different aspect. You said Big Bang. Are we saying that the implementation of free SHS has been beneficial to us as a country? I beg to differ. That is a debate perhaps for another day. But as in terms of the traffic light system, lack of infrastructure, lack of teachers, there were different ways that this could have been done that would have benefited us. We looked at quantity without any recourse to quality. And you cannot just look at quality without quantity. So there's a middle road, progressive. Even the Constitution, the forebearers recognize this and use that word, progressive. Big Bang was not a good idea, but we have it. Now it's a constitutional requirement. It's been met. Who can remove it?
So when the NDC says review,
Yes.
could it, in your estimation, bearing in mind all the criticisms you have leveled against
Yes.
the free SHS program, could it, in your estimation, include the need for some people to pay?
Yes.
Would that not be exactly what you're saying the Constitution prevents?
No.
Because it would then, if we've, like you explained quite well, it can we've arrived at free,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so any change of that,
Yes.
so that someone who used to not have to pay
Yes.
now has to pay,
Yes.
means that you are not being progressive, you're actually being regressive.
But there are many ways of doing it, Kojo. Why? Free SHS did not say that somebody cannot pay for his boarding for his students, his ward. It did not say that somebody cannot pay for feeding of his ward. It's the strict interpretation that gave us all the problems when headmasters try to go and get the PTAs to get food for the other thing, and all hell breaks loose because the government doesn't want to be seen as. That has got nothing to do with the tuition or the free SHS.
So perhaps their fear is that once you review
Yes.
the program in this way,
Yes.
some people will lose access. Right? The only reason why some people are able to now go to schools like St. Augustine's and Vansipim and Presec and so forth is because they don't have to pay for boarding school.
Yes, but are you saying that the people who are in the schools are not paying anything now? The people are still paying. The free is not free. if you understand what I'm saying. It's not free. Things are being paid for even when they go to school. So, but we are saying that, look, you know the first person who's mentioned that the policy of let's look at means testing. It was Ken Ofri-Atta of MPP, the finance minister. He looked at the books and he made it abundantly clear that, look, it is not in the interest of the country not to have a payment scheme that can help the cause.
He gave himself as an example that he can pay.
Exactly. So what is it we are talking about that everybody can come to an agreement and say, look, if Kojo believes that he can pay half of the fees or a quarter of the fee because of what he earns, yes, it should be reviewable. If Kojo becomes unemployed in a year, can it not be said that because he's unemployed or his source of income has evaporated for one reason, he can now fall into the bracket of having not to pay? There are many ways of looking at it. And so if you are talking of an act, a statute, that is going to be looking at these issues and addressing them, which a policy document can do anyway, so let's have a policy document and see where we are, then it makes sense that, okay, let's have the statute. But if it's for protection, which is what is being said, protection of the policy, it makes no sense. And that is where I believe the minority or the NDC, because protection is ingrained in the Constitution. That word should never have come in place. And this idea that, oh, it's political mischief. You are trying to give the impression that there are some who are now coming to scrap this idea of people are going to get rid of free SHS. You are trying to still get it into the minds of Ghanaians. Nobody has ever said that the free SHS, as for the review, it is palpably necessary. And even the IMF have made it part of the program that they should look at the free SHS program. Nobody has said scrap. Review is review. So that's where I am on this matter.
Right. Nana, is the Constitution really not enough?
Kojo, thank you. Let me also thank greet our listeners and my good friend Alex, whom I haven't seen in a while. It's good to see you again.
I'm grateful. Same
All
here.
right. Now, Kojo, the act that is being intended, I don't know where my friend gets the impression that the act, the intention to legislate free SHS is meant to protect it.
That's what the majority leader said. He said that there are some people who have signaled that they would want to scrap it, and so this law would protect.
Oh, well. I don't know if really the way to protect a social intervention like free SHS is an act of parliament, because very, very simply, an act of parliament can be repealed, isn't it? Yes. So I don't know if we have we've taken the gentleman out of context, or he was just making a statement of the cuff, because an act of parliament can be repealed. So if NDC or the next government intends to repeal it, they will just repeal it. They will mobilize the numbers and repeal it. So I don't think protection is the core intention. You know, this free SHS, we would agree that it's probably one of the biggest social interventions we've had in this country in the last 50 years. I can think of health insurance. I can think of free SHS. These are big social interventions that affect millions of Ghanaians. So, and it's been operated in the last 6 years or 5 years as just a policy. And Alex is saying that he hasn't even seen the policy document. So 4 or 5 years after operation of free SHS, and you say there's even not a policy document available to the public. And so if there's the intention to write it into law after 4 years, 5 years, it is a good intention. It's such a massive social intervention. The NHIS is law. So ideally, the free SHS should have been preceded by a law, like the NHIS did. I think there was some 1 or 2 pilots and so on. But it was started in 2004 with a law. The law was passed in 2003. Incidentally, my NDC friends walked out of Parliament when the bill for the NHIS was being considered. I've never understood that action. Such an action that was going to have undoubted benefits for the people of this country, including those of us sitting in the studio. They left Parliament at it when the bill was being considered. I've never understood it. But it
Have the
started
difficulties in its implementation not vindicated them?
the NHIS.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how they're struggling.
The biggest difficulty is the funding, isn't
Yes.
it? But the concept and the structures that have been put in place are first class. But the biggest difficulty has been the funding.
So perhaps
Yes.
a bit of thinking should have gone into it before
No, the funding,
the law was passed.
The law, you would agree, made the funding available. It's just that in the implementation of the funding, we've had difficulties, both NDC and PP. But the law provides for the funding. So the main problem has been the funding. But I'm saying that you don't boycott. You stay to make your point and you trade off. Boycott gives the impression that you are against it. But anyway, but I'm saying that a major social intervention like free SHS, like health insurance, came with a law. Free SHS is also a huge social intervention. There's no, according to Alex, there's no policy document backing it that we know.
There?
I haven't seen it. I assume there is. But Alex is saying he hasn't seen it. There is no policy document. But if that reinforces the point, then there has to be some document as a reference point. The things that we've talked about that need to be streamlined. Let's say the 4 or 5 years is a trial period. We need to now streamline it and mainstream it. And when it's mainstreamed, it becomes something for the whole country. So it's not just an initiative by a political party, but it becomes there's a national ownership because it's law passed by Parliament. And so all the things that we've talked about, the funding, and let's talk about means testing. It gives us a chance to debate and see how we can put it into law. I am for means testing. I mean, I find it difficult to agree that I would take my child to a primary school or pre-secondary school where I pay 10,000 cedis a term, and then they go to Agri Memorial Secondary School or GSTS, and 3,000 cedis. They say, I'm not able to pay. So these are.
But that means you disagree with your president.
I don't think the president himself will tell you that he's always right. Yeah, and disagreeing on an issue doesn't make the issue wrong. It's just opinion. My opinion is that we will save a bit of money if we did some means testing. And after 4 years, 5 years, a law gives us the opportunity to look at means testing and estimate how much it will save and so. But at least there'll be a debate. And depending on how the debate goes, we can put in some provision to provide for means testing, which is something that has exercised our minds over the period. The modalities for the feeding and all of that. It gives us an opportunity to streamline it, bring out the difficulties, put our minds together to how to reduce the difficulties. A law or an act where there's going to be not just a debate by Parliament, but it gives the opportunity for all stakeholders to provide memoranda to the committee, hold public hearings, provide memoranda, make the arguments, do the debates before it goes to Parliament for further debate, first reading, second reading. So at the end of the day, you would have a policy that will take care of the concerns that have been raised, and that would also bring improvements into the policy. This business about protection, I don't think that really is the main. But let's talk about.
Well, but talking about the protection, 1 minute on all of us. Let's just listen to what Alexander Apenyumaking said.
Sure.
Let's just listen to him, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
The Minister of Education will present the free SHS bill to Parliament. The Chapter 5 of the Constitution provides some aspirational indicatives. Those are not justiciable, but once by policy of government, an aspiration as envisaged by the Constitution is put into action, then to make it justiciable, you enact. In other words, there are provisions in the Constitution that you cannot enforce. You cannot claim rights to those provisions. the fact that they are there does not mean that you can apply to the court to enforce those rights. They are merely enforce certain rights and give rights and take certain actions. So I think that this free SHS bill, if considered as a house, what that means is that it becomes mandatory for government to implement this. Unless it is repealed, no government would have the right to say, I am not going to enforce free SHS. Because now there's a law. So if you fail, a citizen can apply to the court as his bona fide, and the court would exact justice in that citizen's favor. So that is the good news about this bill.
So clearly, he says that he thinks that could be one of the benefits of the law. But then in the next sentence, he says that unless you repeal it, which means that even the protection that you envisage the law will give it.
He
it's
introduces
not
another
absolute.
aspect, though. He talks about how it would now be possible for a citizen to enforce their rights to free SHS. So someone could sue the government if they find that SHS is not free for them. They can sue the government.
Well, the government can simply repeal it. Now,
But if I can just comment
one
on
second.
that.
I'll just... Okay, no, go on.
You can still sue under the Constitution. It's a breach of the Constitution.
Well, he
Because
says
so-
in the Constitution it is expressed as an aspiration,
Yes, it's an aspiration.
not a justiciable.
It
provision.
has a certain mandatory tone to it. So
But anyway,
it's best to anyway.
You know, the NDC having, the NDC. What I find difficult is the attitude of the NDC to free SHS. As late as today, free SHS became a mainstream. Was mainstream in our political debates from 2012. As late as today, 2024, with the announcement of this intention, the NDC, the attitude is still ambivalent. You don't know where they stand with free SHS. Their spokesperson, as late as today, the MP, I think is the ranking member on the Committee on Education, he says that he is opposed to the bill because government owes the West African Exams Council. What has that got to do with a bill on free SHS? He says that he doesn't see why the bill should be a priority because government owes work.
Was that the only reason he said?
Well, unless that's what I heard. And then even now, my good brother Alex saying that free SHS has not been beneficial, and that it's affected quality and all kinds of stuff. Even now, 2 minutes ago, Alex is saying it hasn't been beneficial, but we all know that it has been beneficial. It has brought secondary education to thousands of Ghanaian children who otherwise would not have had secondary education. And we all know that education is the biggest lever to raise people up. And all of us are able to sit in this studio and have this debate because we had some education. And it's the best way. We spent so far, 22, 23 billion. So even when it comes to distribution of wealth, it provides you an avenue to distribute wealth. And then when you look, it talks about quality. When you look at the results of the free SHS graduates, they are far better than what it used to be. Far better. Check the core subjects. Check the last 2 years before free SHS, and check the last 2 years after free SHS. Far better. Was it this year that he swept all the awards, or was it last year he swept all the awards at international level? So, in terms of the outcome, free SHS has been beneficial. In terms of the impact, we may not see it now, but even if you are a mason or you are a truck pusher and you have secondary education, it is much better than not having secondary education. And the idea was to remove fees as an impediment to having secondary education. There are still costs. So I would think that going forward, seeing the numbers that have come into secondary education because of free SHS, going forward, we will be thinking about how we can apportion more national resources to remove some of the other fees so that money does not become an impediment. Still, money is an impediment because you still must buy provisions and trunk and chobos and some of those things. So going forward, we need, whether I call it review or whatever, I mean, we say we would improve it. I mean, what national a program like this wouldn't need improvement at some stage? So all of us are committed to moving it forward. They call it review, we call it an improvement. But whatever it is, we should be looking for it to see how we can make it more beneficial to Ghanaian children.
With that in mind, Nana, there are some who say that when you pass a law, at least in theory, it locks you into a way of doing things. However, right here in this conversation, there seems to be consensus that free SHS is not yet perfect. You say it needs improvement. Alex says it needs review. So why not review it before you think about passing a law to lock things in? We haven't yet figured out how to get it right. Why don't we do that first before we think of making laws?
Review goes on every day. I'm sure if you went to the Ministry of Education today, when they meet their headmasters and so on, they talk about some improvements.
The problem with that, Nana, is that the posturing of the government doesn't seem to be in support of a review. And there are many examples of the president himself. When we did a show here on the Super Morning Show and asked people to give us feedback on free SHS, the president, again, went to Cape Coast. I don't know why people say these things in Cape Coast. Went to Cape Coast and said that a radio station is waging a campaign against free SHS, and promised a robust defense of it, something to that effect.
Were you waging a campaign against free SHS?
No, we just opened the phone lines. And the public called to tell us what they think of free SHS.
And what they're talking about, some of the difficulties.
Of course,
yes.
Because there were many difficulties.
Yes, there are many difficulties.
Indeed, so the question is this: if the posturing of government is that any attempt to review, and even the word review is one you don't like.
Let me tell you.
So
let me tell you
posturing does create an impediment.
Akomeah, who's the NPP's presidential candidate, had said at UPSA that he would improve upon it,
but not review it.
So that is settled. I mean, what it means is that there is room for improvement. So that is settled. And I'm saying to you that for my money, the remaining activities that require money to access secondary education, we should be looking at removing them. So, for example, if I'm part of the debate, I'm going to put forward the means testing, because it will save some money that can be applied to provide toiletries for those who cannot afford. You understand? That will expand it, reduce the barrier of money to free SHS, to secondary school education, and so on. So this legislation, and we need to see the details, would give us an opportunity to look at free SHS, how it has operated, because that's how it's going to be. It will give Parliament and the country an opportunity to look at how free SHS has started, how it has operated, where are the places that improvement should be done, and it will give us an opportunity to put all those things in a bill and streamline. Now, my last point is about this business about difficulty with free SHS. I think sometimes we confuse free SHS and issues arising from it with issues about secondary education in general. And when you listen to some of the people who talk, it's like it's free SHS that brought congestion in secondary schools. We all know it is not true. We all know it. That before free SHS, issues about congestion in the secondary schools. In my school, for example, a lot of the monies that we old students used to provide for the school was just to treat Nkruka because of congestion. The house that I was in GSTS in Takrady, when I was there, were 70 students. 15 years after I left there, in that same house, the numbers had tripled. Same as so the places where were corridors where we could hang, where we could learn, they had all been converted into dormitories. Yes. The school that you went to, St. Augustine's, I'm sure when you left there, the dormitory that you slept in, the numbers had doubled, even though the same dormitories. So it's not free SHS that has brought congestion.
But
feeding,
free SHS has increased access, has it not?
Yes, it has.
That's a point that is made vehemently by the NPP.
Yes.
So naturally, you have increased the numbers beyond what it would have been without free SHS.
Yes, but the benefit is that these people are getting secondary education. And so you had policy initiatives like the, let's call it some name, it's a traffic light or something.
Double track.
Double track. So you had a policy like the double track.
It's still a traffic light.
You had a policy so you had a policy like the double track to take care of it, But I'm saying congestion was not introduced by free SHS.
It was worsened by free SHS.
Exactly. It was and a policy was brought to meet it. The policy will bring initial difficulties, but what is the end result? The end result is that thousands of Ghanaian children are getting education, and they are doing well despite the difficulties. They are performing better than the days before free SHS. And let me conclude on this: my difficulty with the NDC's attitude. You listen to. I've told you what Alex has just said. I've told you what their spokesperson. He says that, but why? The priority should be to pay monies to organizations that government owes, and not legislation of free SHS. You listen to President Mahama himself. He had said recently that if he had 2 billion, I think in March, if he had 2 billion cedis, he wasn't going to spend it on free SHS. He accused students, when he looking at the results, he said that the students were cheating. But these students are going on from free SHS to some of the best universities in the world, and they're performing. They are winning international awards. John Mahama said that they were cheating, So when you speak like this, when you have people like Alex saying that they don't see the benefit, you have the spokesperson on education saying that it's not a priority now and we have to find money to pay WAEC. You have President Mahama saying if he has 2 billion, he's not going to spend it, and all of that. It gives an ambivalent attitude. The NDC need to make up their mind. They spent millions and millions of cedis in 2012, and I'm sure Joy FM was very happy about it because they half the adverts came here. They spent millions and millions of cedis producing adverts against free SHS in 2012. But we could say that was the period before. But now that it's been operating for 4 or 5 years, and we've seen the benefits, and we've all want to see the way forward to improve it. Be clear what you want. Be clear what you want. When you say if I have 2 billion, I'll spend it on free SHS, what do you mean? So NDC does that. They should be clear. It is one of the biggest social interventions in this country over the last 50 years. Education is the biggest tool to lift people up, and the NDC should come on board. Ghanaians want it. We agree there can be improvement. Let them come on board so we can all think through and see how we can improve it to make it more accessible and more Ghanaian children to come into it, not be giving us this ambivalent attitude.
Right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there's lots more to talk about, including Galamsey. Should we all just give up and accept that we can't fix it?
Are you going to give me my right of response?
Oh, absolutely. When we come back from the break, we will do that before we get into Galamsey. But listen, we have to ask ourselves some hard questions. Look, should we accept that nobody can fix this thing? In spite of putting presidencies on the line, we're still seeing parliamentary candidates even incite violence against military personnel. Water is undrinkable in this country. Meanwhile, the alternative has already promised that they will give amnesty to those who, mine illegally. Where do we go from here? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll look into it.
the training official. Only I'm going to some days in the community. It will be about side. I'm going to say a question. It's about so about petrol. Petrol now soldiers need security services here. What woman? And my road business. It is a while for a woman now 5 million, 3 million, 10 million. Now the data person of and to food one at the man. 7 million percent here. Because the police for the soldiers who are at the office, try cases are more way man, you know, who you have from you. And you see, yeah, or be back petrol, as I said, when they are high. So, while full of money, the wild person of the man, on board in my mobile. But so the paper said, or you soldier naked in pay too much pay, but too control what my own game. And track ideas or more of Camera. Oh, yes. So, our petrol or Baba petrol walker. And the Akase, authority or the AD Master Mature, Jeffrey said, you know, we are a more mature, or also we are a two. I said, but the money is a money American for. And bravo, we are more by so yet to make you. Or no, I want to move on with the ball.
Your morning radio.
This parliamentary candidate quite clearly inciting minors to attack security officials. Now, he's given some explanation for his words. He says that he said that because sometimes the security personnel are sent by the NDC. That was the first explanation he gave. Then he was pushed further on a later, bulletin, and he said, well, he retracts what he said, but he did not incite violence against security personnel. So he retracts, but he didn't say it.
He didn't what?
Say it. He says he didn't say what he's being accused of saying. He did not incite violence against security personnel, right? But he retracts what he said. So there is that.
He retracts what he didn't say.
Precisely.
Is that what you are telling me?
Well, that's what he said. I'm simply repeating what he said to you.
Did you ask him what he is retracting?
Well, Evans was doing the interview at the time, and by the way, at the point he made this retraction, the conversation had been going on for quite some time, where he had been continuing to deny what he said until this point where eventually he retracted, did not apologize. Because he was given the opportunity to apologize. He was asked, are you apologizing? And he kept saying, no, I'm retracting. So that's that. He's been arrested and then released on bail since then. But he said these things in the presence of the Western Regional Minister, who has not been arrested. And this is a problem because the Western Regional Minister is the representative of the president in that region. The president who put his presidency on the line to fight Galamsey. I mean, you must, as a member of the NPP, feel frustrated that you don't seem to be winning this fight.
Well, but let me just start off from where you ended. You talk about the Western Regional Minister who's supposed to be the head of the regional security. So, anything that could amount to an incitement against security people, he should be concerned. But we don't have a report on what the regional minister said.
In this audio that has been going round, we didn't hear him speak. We only saw him present.
Yeah, but obviously he would speak. Yeah, and what I would think is that in his remarks he probably would say something about the impression that the earlier speaker's comments would have given. And so because we don't have a report on what he said or didn't say, I would leave him out of it for now. But clearly, any comment that could be interpreted as encouraging Galamsey would be unfortunate. And clearly, you said that the gentleman retracted that means he's saying, I didn't speak well. It would have been best if he had gone on then to offer a straightforward apology. But clearly he himself would acknowledge that he misspoke.
He's also say he didn't say that at all.
He's not retracting.
But
he said, I didn't say it.
No, you said he's retracted.
But he didn't say it.
Kojo, how can you retract what you didn't say?
Not my words.
So clearly, if the gentleman told you that he has retracted, it means he's retracting what he said. Because it will be, you can't retract zero. You can't retract what you haven't said. If I did a retraction on this discussion, I'm retracting what I said. If I didn't say something, how can I retract it? So clearly, he himself, and I would have wished that he just had gone ahead and done a straightforward apology. Sometimes...
Do we have that clip? I mean, if we can play back what he said and when he retracted it. Jojo, let's see if we can find that clip and play
because
it
you see,
for context.
if what you said would give rise to a certain impression, and that is not what you meant. I mean, there's no harm in coming out to say, yes, I said this. I didn't mean it, but I've seen that it's been interpreted as inciting or whatever. And, that's not my intention, and I retract and I apologize. There's nothing wrong with it, Because anything that can be interpreted as encouraging Galamsey should not be accepted. There's no debate about the destruction that Galamsey is doing to this country. There's no debate. We've gone past that. And in fact, when you look at the last two governments, both leaders made a tremendous effort to fight this canker. I mean, President Mahama, we all remember what he did. He formed a ministerial task force headed by the Minister for Mines and put the soldiers at their disposal for 4 years. The results were mixed. When the new government came, or the current government came, they decided to reinforce the fight. In fact, the president made some very bold statements and said that he was going to put his presidency on the line. And if it was going to cost him the next election, he felt that this was something that the country needed. And he literally replicated what his predecessor had done. He also formed a ministerial committee to oversee the fight. And he also put the army at their disposal. After the first term, there were mixed results. And in the second term, in the continuation, we all remember the president even saying that because in the first term there had been controversies about the earth-moving equipment, particularly the excavators. There have been some controversies. So
we still haven't found.
So in the second term, we all remember the president saying that earth-moving equipment found at Galamsey site should be destroyed on site. And people even thought that the president was being too drastic and so on. So
or
clearly
unlawful.
Well,
destroying evidence.
People. So clearly, the president, nobody tested it at law. So we can't bring in the law at the moment. But people thought that he was being too drastic. But that shows you the commitment that our leaders have had in the fight against Galamsey, both President Mahama and President Akufo-Addo. But from the evidence that we see, there has been some improvement. We should admit that.
Where, Nana?
Look, in my hometown, it's a nice little town called Insutem. You know where Linda Door is? That is my hometown. In the days of Galamsey, I mean, when at the height of it, the main road of the town, you would, in the evening after 5, you would see excavators. You would think it was a showroom. 50, 60 excavators parked by the roadside of the main road of the town. And you couldn't get accommodation in the village because a lot of young men had come to do Galamsey. Now, if you went to my village, you wouldn't find one excavator, And I'm sure is being replicated in several places. In the
Are
country.
you sure,
But
though, Nana? I mean, I want us to establish this point of improvement that you're suggesting. Because on that same road, that same Kumasi road, Erastus Asaridonko reported to us on Monday that now someone is mining right there on the roadside, same place where these excavators used to be parked.
I have said that as far as Mine Town is concerned, there has been some improvement.
But have you seen the water bodies?
But I haven't said that nationwide, generally, the fight has been a success. And I was going to say that, led by the good work, Joy FM and Erastus and so on, the work that you have done is so clear that the fight is far from being won, and we have to look at new ways of fighting it. The commitment is there, the effort has been made, the results are not satisfactory as we speak.
Nana, is the commitment that some people question. Because as the president says in one breath that he's putting his presidency on the line, and by saying that, what he meant was he doesn't care if he loses votes.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't care if he loses. He's not going to use this illegality to gain popularity. That's what he meant. Then you see people who wish to represent your party in parliament say the direct opposite. Say that, look, beat them up when they come to fight Galamsey. And it's not just them. You've heard other people make similar comments to small groups of miners, telling them, we're behind you, we're backing you. The chairman of your party in a particular region has been caught on camera mining illegally. His company has been caught on camera mining illegally.
At where?
In, what's the name of the forest reserve? In fact, the ministry wrote to him to tell him to stop.
Okay.
So it's established. Even the government is aware that he was mining illegally in that forest. He was supposed to be prospecting. Yeah. He was mining. Then when they were asked to go and investigate, they went to burn the site. Again, this burning thing. So Nana, even though the president was clear when he said what he said, it's clear that the rest of the party is not living up to his words, because they are still using it as a crutch to gain popularity among these communities.
Yes, but you will not deny the commitment.
It's the commitment we're questioning.
Look, you people are committed to balanced reporting, unbiased reporting, fearless journalism. So if there's a slip somewhere by some reporter, it doesn't take away from your general commitment to the principle. And I've said that at some point, we even thought that the president was being too drastic. So we agree that the efforts, and not just President Akufo-Addo. In fact, President Akufo-Addo is doing literally the same thing that President Mahama did. Ministerial task force, that means a certain high level of supervision, and also putting the army, So the effort has been done. The commitment is there. The results have not been satisfactory. What it means is that we must be looking, and these statements that are made by politicians, we all agree that the gentleman misspoke. It's not just him. Look, and you have brought it into my mind. I wasn't going to bother myself with it. But you remember NDC top officials actually going to Galamsey sites and meeting with people engaged in Galamsey live and telling them, look, you people, there's some backlash against you. If you vote for us, we would come and support you. And this gentleman that I have brought, he's the person who's going to be appointed to head the office that will give out lands for Galamsey. That's why I have brought him here to see you people. And when you vote for us, this is the man who will give you the land so you can continue your work. In the middle of the Galamsey activity, you've had President Mahama himself in the campaign in 2020 telling people that if they voted for him, those people who have been prosecuted and jailed for Galamsey, he would release them. He would give them amnesty, because some Chinese people were repatriated, as if repatriation is not punishment, but they were repatriated. So, it's like saying that somebody who came and stole your car will be freed because somebody else has stolen bigger money. I don't understand it. But that's what President Mahama told people. That if you vote for me, I'm coming to free them, and I'm going because I believe they have regretted, and So
did you not have a point though that bigger fish were going scot-free?
So you go after the bigger fish. You don't tell them that when I come, because you are small fish, I'll release you. I mean, I've never heard that logic before. But let's put it aside. We must look forward. I mean, I have said to you that this is the effort President Mahama did. He set up a ministerial team. He put the army at their disposal. And yet you find him out of power telling people that when I come, I will free you. I mean, what encouragement do you need? So looking forward, we should all come around the table and think through. If there is a national conference or multi-party, multi-stakeholder to think through, review what has been done, identify the difficulties that have not allowed us to see the results that we want, I'll be very, very happy. For example, this business about giving licenses to mine in a forest reserve, I have never understood it, because the very word of a reserve means it is reserved, unless we don't understand the language.
We are reclassifying them so that people can mine.
And when you classify a place, you set up a forest reserve. The people who own the land, they can't go in and farm cassava. They cannot. It's a reserve. They have other places they can farm. It's a reserve. They cannot go in there and farm cassava. So how do you have a provision that allows people to go and mine? I don't understand. So those are things that we can look at quickly. Now, my last point is that, when responsibility is diffused, it is difficult to get results. But when responsibility is determined, Kojo Yankson, you are responsible to provide chocolates to the studio every morning. So if there's no chocolates in the morning, we go and hold Kojo Yankson. That's all. Simple. In the fight against Galamsey, it doesn't look like the responsibility is specified. In this country, every square meter of land comes under the purview of a district. So, because every square meter of land comes under the purview of a district, it means it comes under the purview of a district security architecture headed by a district chief executive. So, looking forward, if we say, for example, that the DCE or the MCE will be held responsible if Galamsey activity takes place in their district, then the responsibility is fairly situated and there will be no excuse. So Joy FM has found, when you're talking about something, I was asking you where. There are political authorities there headed by the district chief executive. There's a security headed by, and so going forward, if we can have some of this tactics, I believe we can do. I mean, just ban this in the exploration at all in the forest reserve, try and situate there. But my conclusion is that we've done a lot of work across regimes in fighting Galamsey. The results have not been as we want. You can't get a different result if you continue doing things the same way. We must be looking forward, because we cannot give up the fight against Galamsey.
Okay. Mr. Segbefia, I think Nana has said that we're dissatisfied with the results so far. But unfortunately, as a government in waiting, you've already signaled that if your flag bearer wins, there will be amnesty for those who have already been convicted of this. So literally, the ones we're looking to for a solution are planning to take us even further backwards.
But Joe, have you heard the tape of what John Mahama said?
Yes, I have.
And didn't he put a caveat on that, indicating that those who admitted that they had done something wrong will be rehabilitated, and that we as a government will introduce regulation and monitoring for making small-scale mining, because small-scale mining is not Galamsey. And he's trying.
But he said he will give an amnesty to the Galamseyers
on the
who have been
basis
convicted.
of a rehabilitation. It wasn't. Go and look. Listen to the tape. It was played
but why is
for
that?
Nana Akomeah in a different studio. This issue of repeating
didn't-
things that he didn't say must cease. So get the tape.
But
Because
why
the
is
man-
that?
the
Why
man
is that
said
better?
precisely. Do you have the tape?
Listen,
Yes, we do.
listen.
We'll play it. In fact,
And
let's-
Alex,
let's-
one second. When you
Please,
go
no, 1
to-
second.
No,
No,
exactly
Chief,
1
Chief.
second. Oh, I gave you 1 second.
Okay.
Look, when you go to a place, election time, and you tell the people, when you vote for me, I will come and free your people who have been imprisoned.
He didn't say that.
He said
Keep
so.
repeating it.
He said so.
It was
Kojo, what did
Okay,
you
let's
hear?
let's not
Kojo,
do
what did
this.
you hear?
Let's just play the tape.
play the tape for the
We're
whole
going
thing.
to load it in a few
Kojo,
minutes
what
and
did you
play
hear?
it. So
what did you hear?
We will play the tape, so it doesn't have to be based on what we heard. We'll load it and play it in just a few moments. But in
Alex,
the
we'll play
meantime,
it.
please make your point, Mr.
Yeah.
Segbefia.
So that's the first point. There were caveats about small-scale mining, regularizing it, and getting Galamsey people to do mining that is legal under small-scale mining. And as a result of that, he would look at giving amnesty to those who were willing to accept their responsibility and go into the legal process. I don't see anything wrong with that.
They will take amnesty forms to the prisons, and people
Nana,
will fail.
you have said enough. You have said enough.
If we're having a discussion,
No, I want us to hear Mr. Segbefia. I want us to hear Mr. Segbefia.
Let me say mine.
Please
You
go
understand?
ahead. Please go ahead.
Look, so I don't. You see, and this, there's some form of equalization. This is what NDC did. This is what we did. The extent of Galamsey today, is it the same as 7 years ago? There's a great disparity. It has gone through the roof. And you have hit the nail on the head. A president says, I've put my presidency on the line. If that was the case, by now he has resigned. Because Galamsey has not in any way improved. You have a minister of state who has done a report. And you know the sticking point in this is because that report indirectly implicates or indirectly government officials involved in Galamsey. And it is that aspect of it which has gone through the roof that is creating the problem, because everything is rhetoric. They are just speaking, but they are not acting. So you have a whole government which appears to be involved in Galamsey. Anybody from, he's talking of district security agencies, district chief executives. The reason why you have to do a national task force is that they are not doing their jobs. They are also doing mining. Those district chief executives and MCs who are in those areas are part of the problem. So you go in and have to bring in a central task force unit with the military. In some places even, they argue that the military is also now being compromised. Is this not a fact, Kojo? So things have gotten from bad to worse. Why are you talking of NDC? We've been out of power for 7.5 years. Our waters are still brown, even more brown.
But should we not be able to look to you for hope?
Yes.
That if indeed
But
you
you
win,
have to regularize it. You yourself made a comment. You see, it's not going to go away overnight. This is a long-term process. Why? Because what they get in terms of remuneration by taking those type of risks is so high, because they have no future, that people are prepared to take any kind of risk. People are selling their lands. Galamsey is going on in people's houses. They go into them. So
Boise.
if you don't appreciate the what's it called, the attraction of these illegal activities, you really have to find a way to regularize it, so that as a community, people can do legal mining, small scale mining, and it is regularized. You know, this section, don't go beyond this, don't go this way, this is the depth. If not, if you don't do that, when you do it and you finish here, reclaim the land, plant some trees, you should have all that as a policy and a program. It is not overnight job. But if you sit and think that, oh, Galamsey is going to go out overnight, it is not true. But you must be politically determined first and foremost. You must be politically determined. And where is I don't know, maybe it's out there. Has the MPP made a statement on this matter of their PC speaking? Have they? I mean, this is against your own president's so-called fight against Galamsey. I have a parliamentary candidate. Look, he's talking about the military. What was he thinking? They should go and attack military people? And you haven't even had the temerity or had advice that the first thing you should do is, my brother, go and apologize. So just don't fight this battle. Just apologize and say, look, I retracted it. I was overwhelmed by the situation, as the Minister of Health has said on issues before. I'm overwhelmed, so definitely let me just do what say something. And let us say, okay, you didn't do that. You were actually trying to justify. Then you said, I'm retracting, but at the same time, I'm not retracting. I didn't say it. Then, but the tape is there. And then what is the justification? I mean, it's a complete mess. Complete mess. This is completely wrong. I'm very happy that at least he has been invited. He's on bail. I just hope he doesn't stop there like many issues. Once Joy stops talking about it, he's dead. If the media don't pick it up from elsewhere, he's dead. We will not hear anything about this issue again. He's going to go about his merry duties, trying to campaign to win an election. And such a person now is going to become, we hope not, a potential parliamentary candidate, not candidate, MP. Where are we going with this? So I'm clear. You have to have a clear-cut process of regularizing what is a damaging issue. We should make certain things clearly illegal. Those that go into the riverbeds, whatever they call them, something fun, yung fan or some shangfans, and all those should disappear. And it is not an issue currently which stops with those people who you are not claiming at the bottom. Those at the top, illegal foreigners or foreigners who are not supposed to be involved in that, to the point where the Chinese ambassador can tell us that we don't grant visas. You understand?
She's not wrong though.
I'm not saying she's wrong.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, how can you compare your time to our time? You understand? It has gotten very, very, very bad.
Let's hear and put this thing to rest once and for all. Let's hear former President John Mahama talking on this issue of amnesty for Galamseyers.
Yeah, ban. Omo mochi omo Galamsey no. Omo atu omo mu. Ya be ma omo amnesty no omo asaba. Mi ojidi se. Emre bia omo fom ye. Omo enu omo ho. Enti ye be yi omo na ya ma omo another chance.
The tape.
Okay, I think we might have to take a break to get the full tape. This is the one that was available, but there's a longer tape. So we'll see if we can get that. But you hear him here on this one.
Please, let's not discuss it. Play the full thing. If not, don't play it at all.
Wait, but he did say this.
I had said it in a context. Where's the rest of the tape?
So
he said you were saying, and then it was cut. Why? That's the point I'm making. Let us hear what he said in totality. It has been played. I was sitting with him and they played it. So I know what I'm talking about. He made it clear that the amnesty is based on people's rehabilitation and acceptance. What is going on?
I don't understand.
I still wonder though whether that would be an improvement to say that, oh well, if they are sorry, then we'll let them out. I mean, how is that going to be more of a deterrent, to Galamsey than, we'll try and find the full tape.
If you say somebody says that, look, I'm going to give you all amnesty to go and continue with your lives. It's very different from saying, if you are remorseful and are willing to now go down the path of legalities, namely small-scale mining, we will help you to rehabilitate yourself and then give you an amnesty.
But
that is very different, because it means that you're not even appreciating the principles of how we deal with offenders of a crime.
Granted that there is a difference, let's go back to the
Juxtapose
original
that-
problem.
okay, yes.
Let's go back to the original
Yes.
problem, which is Galamsey.
Yes.
Right? So why is this approach better? Why should we hear the president say, oh, if they are sorry, we'll let them back out and rehabilitate them? Why should that make us hopeful that this will solve Galamsey when the thing is a crime? In fact, it's not just a crime. Okay, it is something that even during wartime,
Yes.
I don't think even Adolf Hitler polluted nations' water sources. But we are doing it to ourselves, and the solution is that if they are sorry, we'll let them out.
Kojo, you are totally missing the point. One, it was caveat on the basis of remorse and showing that you accept that you did wrong. Because you cannot be remorseful for something that you haven't done wrong. He made it clear that the action was subject to people showing remorse and agreeing to do it legally. And it was based on the fact that this current government had just freed a woman who was at the kingpin of Galamsey, and she was told to leave. And she had returned into the country. Now she's been arrested again. So there is a background to it. So if you take it out of context, then I think that you are being unfair to the former president. And that's why I didn't want you to play the tape in a small section. You just take a word. It is a common practice. Take the whole thing that has been said and let's listen to it. That on that particular topic. And then we will hear, and then people are allowed to make their
All right.
Yeah,
Listen, we're going to take some messages. We will come back to this and see if we can make time for the final topic as well, which is the president insisting he's not a clearing agent. Stay with us. We're back with more after these.
Your morning radio.
All right, then. Listen, let's break this thing down. The president has said it again that he's not a clearing agent. Nobody will force him to put aside rule of law. Nana, but who has asked him to put aside the rule of law?
Well, the president has said that, as far as he's concerned, if he comes into possession of good evidence, he would be able to take action. If the evidence that is presented following accusations, if the evidence is not good, it will restrain his ability to take action. And that's why he's saying that he has to ensure that the rule of law works. And the rule of law is, the basis is evidence. He says that I've been accused of being a clearing agent. And he believes that in those instances, the evidence was not good enough. He gave the example of he making an effort to see what evidence was available. He gave the example of Boachi Ajakun, the cash for seats. You remember? An initial investigation was set up. He gave the example of Alfredo Bain of Bost, Ken Ufuriata, the conflict of interest matter. He has the OSP to investigate. Pius, what's Pius' last name? But in Pius, there was there was something about visa racketeering. He had some investigation done. Robert Safu Mensah was the Director General of the Sports Authority. Charles Bisiu, the illegal mining thing, there was an investigation done. ABRJ, PPA, public procurement, he had it investigated, and so on. and that those ones where the evidence was not convincing, he wasn't going to just go on the basis of public consent, and that the rule of law means that you must have evidence. He went ahead to talk about some of the things that he's done, his government has done, the freedom of information, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, even SML. Recently, he had investigation done. He reacted to it. There was pressure to publish the full report. He published the full. Initially, he was in agreement, but he published the full report and so on. So he's done what he could. If the evidence is not there, as far as he's concerned, it constrains what he could do.
But Nana, does the president accept that sometimes the things he says can affect the outcome of investigations? I'll give only two examples. Most recently, we have the Cecilia Dapar case, where Cecilia Dapar wrote her resignation letter in light of all the controversy around the millions found in her home. And the president, in his response, said, "Oh, I have no doubt that you'll be exonerated." That's not the only one. It's funny, you mentioned the cash for seats, one of the first scandals, in the Akufo-Addo administration. I was at Jubilee House back when the president used to do Meet the Press. And he spoke about this. It wasn't even in answer to a question. It was part of his own submission. And he said he expects nothing to come of the parliamentary investigation, which had only just been announced. I mean, does he not know that these things can affect the outcomes of investigations?
It may, but unless we have concrete evidence that the cash for seats investigation was botched.
But is it better not to say anything?
I'm saying it may. I mean, I totally, I mean, the Cecilia Dapar's matter, I don't have any evidence that it was his comment that produced the results of the how the investigation was conducted. The OSP actually gave reasons why he was having difficulty. In fact, he blamed an institution. He didn't talk about the president. And indeed, Kojo, what we have to bear in mind is that if the president of Ghana, with the powers that he has, doesn't want an investigation, he would not ask for one. So we must give the president the benefit of the doubt. Look, and my brother Alexia, when you talk about, they make accusations and insinuations. When you talk about their record, they say you are doing equalization. Meanwhile, they want to come into office and they don't want their record to be looked at. I've never understood that principle. We will look at your record once you want to come into office and you are making accusations. We have the right to make accusations. We will look at your record, whether you like it or not. You remember, people under investigation were sent to Jubilee House.
There was no Jubilee House at that time.
Sorry, were sent to. So I misspoke. Look, me, when I misspeak, I would admit it. If at the NPP, if we misspeak, we would admit it. These people would never do any admission. They are coming to tell us what Mama said when we all heard what John Mama said. I'll free the people. Now they say if they reform, so he's going to send forms to the prisons.
Now your time is almost
up.
To be fair.
But anyway, so let me. So my conclusion is that you may have a different opinion from the president. I don't have a problem. All of us have our opinions. But his opinion is that he's doing his best. If there is a way that the fight can be improved, let's point it out. If we believe that some of the commentary can have an influence, let's point it out and so on. But as far as he's concerned, he's done what he could. He orders investigation, and the results of the investigation would not support.
So that Mr. Segbefia gets his full.
But he's not going to say much. But anyway,
please.
Because
we invited him because we want to hear what he has to say.
We know what he's going to
say. Mr. Segbefia, look,
he's going to deny Rawlings. He's going to deny Mahama's remarks.
One example. If you have a situation where a minister fails to go for parliamentary approval, fails to have cabinet approval, fails to have Attorney General's advice and goes and orders vaccines and pays for them, and they are not even fit for purpose because they are supposed to come, and makes admissions in a parliamentary inquiry, and he's left to stay at post, and the president laughs it off at the Deba. I don't have to go beyond that. I'm not going to give any more examples. This is a clearing agent's posture. Because there is no way, you couldn't even tell the person, you couldn't even stand him down and say, you can no longer be Minister of Health.
But isn't that rich coming from the NDC? Bearing in mind when
You are
John
doing
Mahama was president.
Equalization.
No, I think it's important. It's important for us to interrogate everything. Bearing in mind when John Mahama was president, somebody was implicated by a commission in this whole what's it called the cash thing at the Olympics. At the World Cup.
You're talking Olympics is demo. It's not
World
us.
Cup. World Cup.
Yeah.
And he was simply moved from minister to Minister of State and brought to the presidency.
Flagstaff.
Pretty much to the. I'm going to say the presidency.
So can I ask a question?
Pretty much brought closer to the president.
Can I
For
ask
more
a question?
Isn't that the same thing?
Let me ask a question. He did wrong. 7 years. Has anybody prosecuted him? When we come, those who have done wrong, we'll prosecute them.
But you should have prosecuted him even then.
No, but I'm saying that he did nothing wrong. In his case, there's nothing.
But
I'm
in
giving you
somebody's
clear.
case-
Look, let's not play with this. You've had the opportunity 7.5 years. After you've taken other people to court. You've taken other people to court. If that is who were under administration, who you said did things. You've convicted people. You didn't convict him on that. You've never even taken him to court. Because the inquiry didn't give you enough evidence, as he is always saying, to do anything with him. So it's not rich. This one is an admission. Clear cut, daylight. That's why I used that singular example. I didn't use all the other ones where you now go on to look. You don't have to go and look for any evidence. The least a president who cares about fighting corruption should have done was to have made him at the least step down. He has no business keeping that minister all that time. Clear as daylight. And people talk about right to information bill. When I was deputy chief of staff, we dealt with 5 anti-money laundering legislation. We amended 3 and created 2 new laws to deal with corruption. Does anybody talk about it? Does anybody talk about it? No one talks about the legislation we passed in our time. You passed one legislation, right to information bill, simply because of the length of time it took. We were able to do this in 6 months with the cooperation of both sides of the House and Parliament, and we passed it. So let's not give the impression that passing right to information bill just because of the length of time is something that is so magnificent when it has an effect on administration, everything, including corruption. But anti-money laundering laws are directly looking at corruption and the way people. So we have statutes on our books that we can show that we did under an NDC government. Then you come to the Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill. Look, as far as I'm concerned, the Office of the Special Prosecutor is cosmetic, what's it called, for the benefit of political gain. We need an Office of the Special Prosecutor. But we need an Office of the Special Prosecutor that has teeth. And the legislation we have does not help him to have teeth. It may end up needing constitutional review to give him the teeth. Because once he's always under the, Attorney General, there are problems.
I want to say a big thank you to both of you. I wish we could go on, but we can't. I appreciate your time with us this
Saved by
morning.
the bell.
I thank you for listening. We're back with more tomorrow. My name is Koji Yankson of the Morning Man. Have a good one.
Sure, thank you.
Abai say, Equatia Galamsey. Na Ghana ma omu small scale mining. Watch it omu. What do you want to court? And you call prison. And then we can say, you're not going to be at that prison. Say, Galamsey. And so, Yakochi China Niba, the Galamsey Queen. Ono the Mofana Uncle Jina Court, Alfana Cotum. Most on there, Uncle Nicrum. And I went down the free or home. And so your mother, Omoda, if you say. Ezu, Yaba, Omo Mochi or Galamsey no, Oma Tuomu, Yabama Omo Amnesty, no Masaba. Mlojidi say, and maybe Omo from here, Omo Omo. Enti yebe yomo na yama omo another chance.
By special dispensation, we've been given a couple more minutes to wrap up on this matter, just in the interest of fairness. Nana?
So we heard President Mahama give 2 reasons why he would give amnesty. He said, first, some Chinese foreigners have been deported. They were not jailed, prosecuted. So he doesn't see why Ghanaians who have engaged in Galamsey should be prosecuted. 2, he said that he believed that the people have reformed. These are the 2 reasons he gave. Number 1, in President Mahama's time, over 500 Chinese were deported. That is on record. So what is he saying? What is he saying? And we're told that he didn't say he was going to do a survey among the prisoners and to see the ones that have agreed to reform. How ridiculous. The man stated very clearly. He said that some Chinese have been deported. When he also deported Chinese, he said that the people have reformed as far as he's concerned. And he said this with the primary objective of getting votes. If it's not good, let's admit this was a bad chapter and move on. There's no embarrassment in this.
Mr. Segbefia.
I want to say that I do not believe, and I'm standing by this, that the tape is complete yet. I'm serious. I would like to listen to the remaining 2-3 minutes. And as I've said, I know that in that tape there was talk about reform and then subsequently using lawful means to create small-scale mining so that they can come and do the lawful things. That is missing.
How do you reform
from the tape? And if your argument is whether amnesty for Galamsey should ever be contemplated, and therefore it should not even be contemplated, then we are going against the tenets of even our lawful or legal process. It's a question of whether you believe amnesty should be granted or not. The Aisha 1 case was extremely high profile, and therefore it had a certain impact on her release, especially because of the subsequent things that happened. So let's not look at 500 people who have been this thing and that particular case, and it was linked to certain government officials.
It was also deportation.
Right. So look, I will just, when I get the rest, because you seem to be getting it, it in trickles. Where you that's all. That's the whole thing.
Only you have heard the full thing.
We thank you both for your time. We appreciate it very much.